Right. The call to public session, forum and all that stuff. And please join us as current and former Clay Huey students. Lead us in the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Best pledge ever. Wonderful to see so many of you come out tonight, back in the boardroom for the first time in quite some time. So we do appreciate you all coming. I know the weather's not the greatest out there. And before we get going, just want to say how much we appreciate presentations like this. This is the good stuff for us, sitting up here at these tables. So thank you very much. I'm really excited. Turning it over. Who am I turning it over to? Me? To you?
To me.
Dr. Sarah.
All right. Well, I'll echo what Mr. Maxwell said. It was just about a week ago that we were able to take our masks off in our schools. And I was truly blessed to have Ms. Walsh invite me into her class to read a book for Dr. Seuss. So I have to say that after 2 full years to walk into that kindergarten class and sit down and read a book to you guys was the highlight of 2 years in education for me. So Ms. Walsh, I just want to publicly thank you for inviting me in and having the opportunity to get into the school, and be with your children for a while. It was very, very pleasure. Really fun. But we have for the past couple of years it's been difficult to get all of the most important people in our schools into the board meetings. But certainly that's what the board is here for. They do their volunteer work to make sure that all of you children have everything you need to have the best quality education in Center West Florida. And in that spirit, Mr. Ritchie has been very, very busy, and Ms. Jackson, to try to coordinate many different things, professional development-wise, to make sure that you're supported, that your teachers are supported. And so I want to just turn it over to Mr. Ritchie. We have a very special presentation of 4 classes from grade 2. And so, Mr. Ritchie, if you can get started. And I would also say, Ms. Craig, too. And so thank you all for so, yeah.
I'm just going to take 2 things for you. One two-sided brochure and then the presentation if you want to cover what's going to be up there. So,
Thank you. Right, so welcome everyone. We are going to have a presentation for the School International Baccalaureate here at Public School for the primary years program. Going forward, we will use the acronym PYP. So you hear me say PYP, you're just to say PYP. It stands for primary years program. There are 4 programs part of the IB program. So currently, the middle school, the MYP, middle years program, and the diploma program at the high school. There's also a careers program. We are not installing that one, but we are in this one. So as you see here is our current mission statement. We've been working in collaboration with professional teachers, different stakeholders within our school community to review our mission statement and revise it to make it more IB friendly. And that's when we said that term IB friendly, where we're making sure that everybody has part of what we want to see at Cleveland Elementary. So it's not just coming from building administrators or district administrators, it's coming from our teachers, from our students, from even our lunch monitors, whoever we feel, whoever's working with our children. We want to make sure that not only do we want our children to see what's in our mission statement, but we as adults, we want to make sure that we're emulating that as well. So it's a work in progress. It's not the final draft. We still have some other stakeholders we want to make sure are represented and are able to review this and provide their feedback. And then once we have all those stakeholders, we'll go through and have a final draft that will be next year.
and just 2 more things actually about that real quick. The funny thing is when we revised this during superintendent's conference statement, our teachers, we really didn't find that we needed to revise very much, like from what our old mission statement looked like to the modifications that we made, it was really like tweaking a sentence or two. There wasn't like a complete overhaul of our mission statement. So it's interesting to see how aligned we kind of already were with the, the ideas of IB. And on the bottom, we're going to post the presentation after today. You can click the link at the bottom and see the actual IB mission statement to see how they kind of coincide with what we're doing. So tonight's presentation is kind of more about how, if I'm a parent in Clayton Huey or I'm a student in Clayton Huey, how is this PYP program going to impact my day? How is it going to change anything that's going on in my child's education? So really, the PYP, I think, when we first looked at it, the misnomer was that it's like a different curriculum or program. And that's really not the case at all. It's more of a framework or an understanding of just teaching best practices and giving us an opportunity to kind of reflect on our curriculums and look at opportunities to enhance them. So what you're going to see today is some of the enhancements that the kids are already working on, because while we may not be authorized yet, the work is alive and well in our halls and our classes. So we're going to talk a little bit about some of the things that are already ongoing and the next steps that we have. It helps us build consistency and structure through our classes and a lot more collaboration that we've seen within our teaching staff, and coming up with new and creative ideas that help to make the experience for our kids just kind of take it to the next level.
So what is the PYP education? It's a framework that focuses on memory-based learning. It encourages our learning process and emphasizes the natural curiosity and making connections with what they've learned. The enhancements that are made to the current curriculum are encouraging action and agency, which we do have some student actions that are going on right now. A transdisciplinary approach to learning, so it's integrating all subjects. It's not just focused on one specific subject, but every subject that a child is learning within a school setting. And then there's an emphasis on being a more internationally minded global citizen. So the IB is a full framework, so it's not anything where, as Mr. said, it's not a program, it's a framework to help take what we're already doing and put the students in the driver's seat for their learning rather than having more teacher learning.
And the action and agency piece is probably, in my eyes, one of the most exciting pieces, because it's taking the student's experience and moving it from learning about things to taking what I learned and doing something with it. So there's not just the learning experience, but the kids you'll see today have actually taken it to the next step and said, okay, now I know about this stuff. What can I do with that knowledge?
So who's PYP for? It's an inclusive education, so any child that enters Clayton Huey Elementary, they walk through our doors, they are receiving the IB education. So regardless of learning needs, everybody is involved. We address all academic, social, and emotional well-being of every child in the building to partner with our Harmony SEL, so we'll make sure that that's embedded as well. And it encourages our students to develop independence and take responsibility for their own learning. So again, it's more than just we're teaching you this and that's it. It's taught you something, and the student can say with their natural curiosity, how can I take what I've learned and do something else with it? And that can be as simple as creating their own book, that could be going to see the aquarium, that could be coming to a board meeting and learning from you guys. There's so many different options for a child once they've gone to that next step.
Okay, so now we're going to kind of walk quickly through the components of PYP. So just to give you a little bit of background, we've been going through this authorization process since we applied for candidacy for almost like 3.5 years now. So I'm not going to get into every little granular detail about that, but just to give you some background information on the components of it, something that you're probably most familiar with first is the PYP learner profile. The students are hearing these 10 words over and over again every single day at Clayton Huey. We talk about them not only in our morning announcements, but they're reiterated throughout the day in the classrooms as well. And it's one thing that's really cool is these learner profile traits are the same learner profile traits in every class at Clayton Huey, including special areas, support service classes, and are the same exact ones that kids are using in the middle school and in the high school as well. So that continuum really is going to help to align us for years to come. So students use these words to try to learn how to become a learner. So they're trying to become thinkers and they're becoming risk takers. And by doing these things, it's going to help them be more successful in their life.
Now, our coordinator come up to explain the next two slides. Okay.
So one of the things that Mrs. Jackson mentioned about PYP is that we're really bringing the concept to the forefront of their learning. So while the content is really important as well, really the concept-based learning is driven by the bigger ideas. So by that, I mean the bigger ideas are really universal and they're timeless. So the students will be able to take these concepts and central ideas that we're developing and take it with them throughout their continuing career and in their future, in their further future. And then also it's universal in the fact that these central ideas really can be applied anywhere in the world, no matter where they live. So even if they're learning about New York State, they might have a central idea such as the environment affects the way people live, and they can take that and apply it anywhere in the world and at any time. So rather than focusing on the facts, or an idea such as memorize and locate the rivers and bodies of water and mountains of the United States, we want to think more universal, more timeless, and broader, and say, okay, geographic features may determine where humans settle. So we're creating these central ideas so that the students kind of have deeper meaning at the end of the unit. So these are more examples of the topic versus the concept. So just once again, the topics are more specific to the subject that they're learning, the people, the things, the places, whereas the concepts are more timeless, universal, and really you can apply it to any subject. So the really cool thing about PYP is we're going to take these central ideas and the students can even carry their central idea, their learner profile traits, the concepts that they're learning, and bring it with them to the other subjects. So if we're learning about systems in the classroom, they can bring that over to PE, and we can talk about systems in PE in many different ways. So we're going to kind of make sure that whatever the central idea is, we're able to apply it not just to the history and science that they're learning, but really to all subject areas.
Thank you. And our next slide is probably the craziest looking one of all. This has been one of the things that we've been kind of navigating for the last 3.5 years. That has kind of been our go-to resource for all things PYP. So this is actually a resource that's available free online. It's something that we track down just to kind of have a catch-all for all of the different components of PYP. And it really teaches us a little bit about how all of these things come together to create this enhanced instruction that we're doing. So you see the learner profile attributes in the bottom left corner, but then two that I want to highlight on this slide are the approaches to learning and approaches to teaching. One of the things that's really important here is that we're putting the students in charge of their learning in a lot of this. So when that's happening, the students have certain roles, that's their approaches to learning. These, as a student, this is what I'm responsible for. As a teacher, this is what the teachers are responsible for. Now that's not, we have some overlap there and things like that, but essentially by learning those skills, those are skills that are going to make students not only successful now and in school and during the project that they're doing, but for the future as well. So being able to research and think and communicate on their own, having self-management skills are kind of lifelong lessons for them to learn.
And to complete that cycle, we have the action and action cycle. And this allows students to now take what they've learned and apply it to anything that's outside of the classroom. So students stay out there, we encourage you. It's a simple process, and we encourage students to choose something that they feel is important to them and how they can make a difference. Research it, act on it. Once they finish acting on it, reflect on their action, and then they can either do it again, or maybe increase stems from that first action and they can do something different. And it just keeps working in a circle, just enhancing their learning and taking the issues that they feel as a 5-year-old, 6-year-old, 10-year-old that's important to them and bringing it out using that learning that they've acquired here. So we want to, it's not just an in-school aspect, the action cycle can happen in school, but it's also something that can be done at home. We do have an example of that that's able to come out later in the year. I'll give you a quick snippet of it. We have 4 students who created their own student action. And that I will give you details later on that, because I want to make sure that the surprise when it comes
Check our
came to
social
us.
media.
They
Nice plug, right?
came to us with a great idea, and instead of us saying, well, here's how you do it, here's what you can do, it's you plan it, tell us what you want us to do, give us the details, and we'll post whatever you have once it's approved, and we'll go from there. A day later, they had everything ready to go.
Yep.
So that's their motivation. We just gave them the push, the encouragement that to say, this is your passion, please run with it. We want to see what you can do, and that's what brings that action cycle. So they're going to act, and when it's done, they can reflect on it and then tell us good or bad, what worked, what didn't work, and if we were to do this again, how can we make it better?
Dr. Soto, can you do me a favor? The bottom link there, that white QIQ link, can you just click that? Please? So we just have a quick video. This is actually something that Ms. Craig had created to help our teachers understand PYP a little bit better. This is actually a resource that we even have the kids utilize periodically as like a presentation tool. It's called Powtoons. You create your own cartoons.
Yes.
Yep. Oh, there's sound.
Using Powtoon
to talk about the program and give us some insight into, how we can continue making our progress towards authorization. We've been kind of anticipating this visit for quite some time, so it's exciting that it's, finally here. Just some of the things quickly that they're going to be doing with us, guiding us on the best practices of what we're doing and what they loved about what we're doing already. Providing feedback on their experiences from what they've seen not only in our school, but in other PYP schools around the country and the world, and communicating and collaborating with our coordinator and our administration about the authorization process. And I know that we've had this for many PYP and IB presentations in the past, and it looks like our arrow hasn't moved very far, but I can assure you that there's been a lot of work that has gotten us through that consultation process. So we're moving in the right direction and we're getting closer to that authorization for class day after day. And now for the fun stuff. All right, so today we brought 4 different classes. First of all, I want to thank our teachers for jumping in here and coming down to bring our kids to kind of showcase some of the things that we're doing. Our first group that I'm going to ask to come up is actually 2 classes, Mr. DeMayo's class and Miss DeMaria's class, if you guys could come up. Actually, some exciting news. I don't know if everybody else knows, but Miss DeMaria just got engaged a couple of weeks ago. We're just going to talk about collaboration that they did with our PE teacher, Mr. Russo.
Hi, I'm Mark Mayo, the 2nd grade teacher.
I'm Jessica Junior.
So we have had the fortunate to be placed next to each other, which thank you, Mr. Ritchie, for that. And it's funny because, you know, just walking by, since we're next door, I was able to walk by, we get to see what each other's doing. So we started collaborating. You know, it's like, I got an idea, but I'm missing like that X factor. Like, you know, Jess can help me out. Oh, what about this? Great idea. So I kept seeing all these great ideas she was doing. I'm like, you know, we got to do a project together. So back in October, we started doing a lot of projects together, and eventually it led to this really cool Olympic project that we're going to chat a little bit about. My class was learning about different countries, and being that the Olympics were going on, I figured, you know what, let's focus on some countries that are competing and talk about some different events. So that's how we got into this, and I'll pass it over to my teammate here.
So I have to give credit. Mr. DeMayo is usually the brains of the operation, and I bring the athletic piece. So the 3rd grade team had come up with a research project that was a group-based learning, and it discussed the Olympics, which was currently going on in the Olympics. And the students in my class were researching athletes and events. And I was saying to Mr. DeMayo, how can we bring this to life for them? How can we make this a PYP type thing? So we decided we would collaborate across content areas and grade levels. So we decided to reach out to the PE teacher, Mr. Russo, and we said, let's go ahead and bring this to life. We decided we were going to create a mock Winter Olympics and mix the grade 2 and grade 3 level students to foster teamwork, leadership, and listening skills. The positive self-talk that we saw, the sportsmanship, cheering, smiles, and reflections on the students' faces made us realize something was going really well here. They celebrated, there was chanting, and it made them realize that the hard work that they put into their projects was they were living in real life. Let them kind of tell you guys through their viewpoint what they felt of it.
So as I mentioned, we've done a lot of projects together. So I have Joe here. Actually, I'm sorry, Anna is going to tell us a little bit about how do you feel about getting to do all these projects with the 3rd grade class? Well, we all know this is Maria, we know that. How does it feel to get to work with the 3rd grade students? And you know, we had a really big question that the kids were asking were, well, there's no snow in the gym. How are we going to do this? So we had to really kind of problem solve that, figure out how we were going to make it work. And Joey, can you tell us about how excited you were about doing the Olympics?
My favorite part was the luge. I really liked how you lay down on your stomach because it feels good like when you sit. And it was really cool that we didn't do it without snow. And
You were able to pull it off. We were able to pull off a lot. So are you excited about being able to, I know you're a sports guy, really big Mets fan, and I unfortunately tease him a lot about that. But it's okay. Hopefully we get a season.
Yeah, let's get a season
Let's get a
before we
season.
start live.
Awesome. And pass it off to you. Good job, guys.
All right, so I'm gonna start with Sophia. So Sophia, you're kind of tiny. So Sophia's gonna talk to you in terms of the learner profile attributes. So those are the prior communication that you read about earlier. She's just gonna talk to you about what she loved when she did her work.
I really think we were reflectful because we were figuring out what was right, not right, we can like all that. And we communicated because we talked together to see if we chose the right foot first or left foot first and cross country skiing.
Dahlia's gonna talk to you about, she's up there in her, what were you doing, Dahlia? What did you love the most about doing it? And Mr. DeMayo and I, the competitive edge came out as we were competing with second and third grade students as well. And I think it's such a great piece as an educator to let the kids see that we're humans too and we like to have fun. We want them to be engaged in their learning and enjoy it.
Thank you. Right, our next group up is Mrs. Dan Molina's class and Ms. Craig. They've been doing a lot of work with the library and their collaboration has really kind of, I don't want to like put words in your mouth, but like the work that the two of them are doing together is kind of magical. Like they keep feeding off of each other's energy and it's kind of intoxicating. They keep learning new things every single time they come into the library. So having this new flex scheduling that we have and allowing Ms. Craig to be not only our librarian, but our PYSP coordinator has kind of built up this enthusiasm for what's going on in there. So I'm going to have them come up and talk a little bit. And you guys have the brochure that was from Ms. Molina's class when Ms. Molina went to the PYP category 1 training. That just kind of gives you a little bit of insight into what's been going on in her class.
So we'll be quick. We don't have our students here today, but we are, Ms. Molina is a fourth grade teacher on the school library media specialist, and we have been working on projects together for years, and there's a few that stick out more recently. And right now, with the flex schedule that Mr. Ritchie was talking about, this year I do have a full packed schedule of classes, but I do have some library flex periods where if there are teachers who are working on a research project or any sort of project that I can get involved in, they're able to come in more than just once every other week with their typical library lesson. So Ms. Molina and I have been working on a project on New York State, but what's really cool is that they're working on the project in the library because my role as a librarian is really to support school-wide inquiry learning. We know we go to the library to do research, and Mr. Ritchie has mentioned putting the students in the driver's seat, taking ownership in their learning, and that's exactly what I've learned from Ms. Molina. She's not a teacher who would go in front of the class and teach the information and writing on the whiteboard while the kids are taking notes. It's quite the opposite. So I've learned so much from her, and I love that she just puts the ownership in the students' hands. And my role, really, I believe that inquiry is at the core of the library. So my role as a librarian is to support by providing many different resources for the students to do research. And I've told a few different classes about what we're doing. And they're like, this sounds like something that the high school kids would be doing. Because the students are finding the information on their own by choosing which database from the virtual reference collection that they're going to use to do their research. And then one of my other favorite things is to talk about presentation tools. So we're teaching them how to use Google Slides. This year, we've done Buncee, we've done a variety of presentation tools, but the students are really taking ownership and teaching each other how to use Google Slides to insert videos, insert audio, insert text. We had the students, it was amazing. They were writing paragraphs on their Google Slides, and we did a lesson together using Nearpod to teach them how to turn the paragraphs into bullet points. And the students were doing it. They were highlighting the keywords. They were then practicing putting those paragraphs into bullet points, not with just any old paragraph, but from each other's slides. And really, I know that inquiry-based learning has a big focus on active questioning, and the students are really asking us questions, not just verbally, but through the comment section on Google Slides, and we're asking questions back. So we've had a lot of communication amongst the students, asking a lot of really meaningful questions through the comment section on Google Slides, and then also we're able to ask meaningful questions for them to then inquire further. So it's really been amazing, the work that they've done, and I'm going to pass it over to Ms. Molina.
Just having to, on that particular, for the student, when they are communicating with us back and forth in the school, they, once they start the communication, there's a part where they have to resolve the problem or the question that we present to them. And I have to say that, putting that ownership, realizing that it's not just a comment we're making, you have a job to do because of that comment, and it changes everything that they're doing. So in the groups that they're working in, whether they're the Mountaineers or they're the River Rats or the Lake Monsters or whatever the different geographical parts of New York State that they have, they are then talking with one another and how to enhance each other's slides as well. So they're all responsible for different ones in their area, and then they go there. But one thing I want to say before you jump is because I would not be able to do this if we did not have in this district the media specialist, the librarian that we do. Some schools have more than one, but I can tell you we are so lucky we've got unbelievable things that you can do, and how wonderful it's going to be for your students coming up through the grades because of the gift that we have here at Center Regis. And I do not want to stop. Yeah, you got it. Do not want to stop with these projects. And often we're sitting there looking and we're showing them things on a slide, and it's not what we're doing. All of a sudden, a child will come up and say, oh, by the way, this tool, if you do this and that, and we look at each other going, all right, cool. But then
Yeah. So speaking of the list, rather than creating a rubric, Mrs. Molina took what we were learning in our research project, and she actually co-constructed a checklist of things that they're learning. So this is just like a little example of the things that they came up with together. So rather than coming up with a checklist and saying, these are the things you need to learn, we're checking them off to make sure you're doing them, they actually co-constructed it and talked about, okay, what is it that we want to learn, and what is it that we've already learned? And let's put it on this checklist to show everything that we've learned about these Google Slides. So I thought that was a really cool.
Those are their responsibilities. We're expecting them at the end of everything that you learn to demonstrate that when we look at your slide presentation, we want to be able to see that you can faithfully, easily demonstrate everything that's on that list. And that list was generated by the students. In fact, I only worked for a few things, and then they would cover up with everything else. And that's where that came from.
So you'll rarely see us standing in front of them, teaching them how to do something. It's really, the students are working in groups, they're learning on they're working on their management skills, their social skills, their communication skills, all the things that IB really embodies. So it's been a really great experience to be working with her class, and really the progress that they're making is unbelievable. And even my husband, who's a high school teacher, I tell him the work we're doing in 4th grade, and he doesn't believe me. It's really amazing.
They can do it, just do it, they'll be able to. With much of what you're seeing on the placemat that you have there, this is a collection of photographs from many kids over many, many years. Different projects that have always been in and around our school, things that we do here. And it just highlights all the students at lots of different levels. I've got 5th graders in there, some of them that are now, and I have a picture of my buddy Joe Rara. I had to see that on the paper and give to you to find it there. And, truly, he was one of the greatest inspirations that I've ever had what to do. And it was when I was down at Venice Beach and doing a sailing thing with my local students, my current students, and walked by Holy Val and Joe, and they had, because they love to fish, and they're bringing me fish this big to put in my tank in the classroom. But again, their enthusiasm never ended. They were already in the middle school, high school. But it is wonderful to be able to work, and I certainly hope we enhance our, get our library. forever.
Yeah.
We're gonna need it.
Thank you very much.
Sarah, through the whole pandemic, I think one of the things that was kind of like kept being brought back up is, you know, as teachers, now we're learning more and more, we're having to learn more and more about technology. And now, like, the pandemic is we're starting to go in the right direction, but that work is still ongoing, so it's been great. Thank you, ladies. Next up, we have Ms. Walsh, and Ms. Walsh is going to tell us a little bit. Recently, our kindergarteners decided that they wanted to take action, and she's going to talk a little bit about what they learned and what they decided to do with their knowledge.
So first, I'd like to introduce my kindergarten friends to you. This is Maya from what we said we were going to go like this. Joshua, Audrey, and Nora. Okay. So as part of our PYP program, kindergartners learn about topics through lines of inquiry. One of our lines of inquiry is where we are in place and time. Our students study weather and seasons using this essential question: how do we adapt to changes in our environment? Okay, Maya.
Get very, very cold.
Audrey? And Nora? Do you remember how many there? So we gave some mitts to our school nurse, our school counselor, and parent-child whole program. And we donated the rest to, do you remember? Helping Me to Happy. One of our PYP learner profile traits is caring. We care about how other people feel. We help people when they need us. We learned that even
We can make a difference.
One of many things that you can see. It starts at the youngest, 5 and 6 year olds who are making a difference. Learn in the classroom. Bring it to their communities. Good job, everyone. Last up, we have Ms. Schaefer's class, who is going to talk about how she utilizes her profile in her classroom. Oh, there we go. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Jones.
we have our friend Liam, and we have our friend Liam who's going to start off with a reading, and then we have Gianna talking.
Inquire about and take risks to have over minded people. Doubts, kind. super sucers.
We love Dr. Seuss in our class. We have an entire thing about Dr. Seuss. We call ourselves super Seussers. So in our classroom, we obviously follow the learner profile traits. So last Monday, the kids came to school and they were all talking about peace. What is peace? World peace. And with that, the children came up with their own essential question. What is peace? And that was a springboard for our day. And with that, through child-centered learning, our essential question, we came to the carpet, and this is their list. Peace. I was writing very quickly because this is all generated from the children. As you can see, they started with coming out with everything. They were communicating with one another. The list was growing. As you can see, we have caring, one of our other learner profile traits. List kept going. All of a sudden, one of them says, follow directions. Still communicating with one another. And as they're communicating, they're looking at the profile traits, which are in 3 different locations in our classroom. And underneath, because they're appropriate for them to read and understand, as they were communicating with one another, they were like, wait a minute, no. That's principle. Follow directions means principle. And I was just standing there, and they're looking to me. And is that right? I said, well, what do you think? And as a teacher, you want to bring it back to the children because it's child-centered and you're guiding them. So as you can see with the cross-off, I showed them, I said, well, do you want to make it principle? Do you want to follow directions? So that's where, to show them, I changed the color and wrote in principle. Before you knew it, they just kept coming up with more and more. And they're standing up and they're all excited about seeing that the profile traits were part of what peace is all about. And then as it was, and I knew where they were going with this, they wanted to do something that represented peace, not just within themselves, within our classroom, because they know we have peace in our classroom based on what was on our list. They were talking about world peace. So with that, they were still trying to figure out what can we write about it. And I said, well, you know what? It was right before lunch. And I said, you know what? I think I can put something together. So when we come back from recess, I said, if you would like, we can do a little bit of writing. So that's where I really can't see it very well up on our wall, but I did bring some samples. From the list, they had a choice of using some of the ideas we already have. Some of them went a few steps ahead and came up with additional thoughts on their own. One of them has namaste, because they do yoga in our session as well. So as you can see, they either chose from our list, put additional in the boxes, colored them in, and then further to show, not just in writing, we created peace beliefs, and they used their hands to make it more hands-on. And it's all, of course, on display, because they figured, why we can let everybody see this, so when we're walking by, everybody gets that feeling of that peace, and everyone has that inner peace within themselves. So again, it's just generated from the children and sharing with others, and letting them realize that they're inquirers, they're thinkers, they have that knowledge that they're bringing forth and communicating with one another. So it was a touching day. It was most of our day, but as you can see, it was well worth it for them and for me too.
When I talked to Ms. Schaefer about this presentation, she was showing me that chart and she said, oh, I'm going to rewrite it and I'm going to make it look nice and neat. I said, no, I want them to see the cross out that they figured out that the learner profile trait is there and alive. And I said, and look at the list right after that. Once they figured one out, they figured out all the rest of them. So thank you guys for coming. That was great. Good job. Awesome. So just to kind of close out, you can see obviously the work is, oh, sorry. Oh, go ahead. No, I don't want to step on your toes. I'm already on the.
So, piggyback up with that, because as you can see, all of the work that's ongoing within our school, a lot of it has taken
place already, it's been included, but you can see that our students are engaged, they're happy, they want to know more, they're asking us questions, they're bringing their curiosities to the forefront, and that's exactly what this program is designed to do. So with all the learning, the action, the learning that they're going to be acquiring while I'm viewing, our students, every single one of you, all, even the littlest ones we haven't seen yet, they're on their way to becoming more globally minded, more respectful, more loving citizens that we need in this world. So thank you for your presentation, for coming to our presentation. My littles who are all ready, I know that it's almost, if not after bedtime, almost bedtime. Thank you guys for coming and sharing everything that you've learned with everybody here. So thank you.
Say on behalf of the board, how wonderful it is to see all of you here tonight. This truly is stuff that we really, really enjoy. The smiles are just fantastic. I am going to need to know where I can get those minutes. So let me know. So thank you to our staff members who came out. We truly appreciate all the work that you're doing and to see what the kids are accomplishing. It's fantastic. So thank you very much. The rest of the agenda is not quite as exciting, so if you would like to read, we completely
If I could
understand.
just very quickly, I just want to say that, again, I'll echo what Mr. Maxwell said. I won't like be too repetitive or too long, but I just want to say that the guys, superintendent, you sit back and you see these things, and it's with a great deal of pride that I see, our elementary students doing these things. We have the MYP program in the middle school and the high school, and I sit back and just yesterday I got an email from a middle school student just to tell you where this is going. And the middle school students basically said, Dr. Massara, we'd like to request that you post some information on the district Twitter account, because apparently they follow me, and you all should. But they wanted to post it basically to be part of their middle years program, where they collect necessary supplies in cooperation with Suffolk County United Veterans Association for the food pantry and other things. And it was like, that's really cool. And I said, that's great, but it doesn't stop there. I said, I'm happy to do it. However, this is what a Twitter, picture, requires. This is, they came back within like 24 hours, these three boys, Matthew, Connor, and Dennis. And you'll see it on my Twitter later on today. And it is literally just a beautiful graphic that they created on their own, because again, it's about building that student agency. So as a superintendent, I'm supporting what we're doing in the classes and saying, great request from you guys, but don't ask me to post it. You have to create what you want posted. And they got back and they went out and did it. And that's what these guys are doing. And so it's just a credit. Thank you, boys and girls, for coming out. I know it is a school night, so I won't talk any longer, and I will let you guys get out of here. But thank you all for coming, and staff, really. So it's such a pleasure to see all the great things happening.
Thank you.
Good night.
You don't have to stay. Thank you so much. Joey, right? I'm that big too. Good job. Yeah, there are people somewhere. Finally have an order, it's going to sketch. And there's no shower. Thank you so much. Come on. I don't want to ask. Thank you so much. Have a good night. Thank you. All right.
Give them a chance to thumbs up. They feel good. Give them a chance to
Okay. All right.
Hello, 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 hello.
You ready? We're going to segue right to the reopening.
All right.
Okay.
Yes, that's right. All right. Thank you, Mr. Maxwell. So we, as I indicated to the group earlier, we have moved to the next phase in the pandemic, and that is endemic planning, learning to live with the virus that exists within our community. As you know, we really have done everything we can to do our part. Everything from making sure that we follow health and safety protocols, to running vaccination clinics, to making sure that we're following all protocols, again, within our building, but also trying to support that in our community. We have distributed several thousand COVID tests in the community. And again, that was very purposely to try to make sure that we can help to mitigate spread within our district and in our community. So multiple points of entry for those tests. One being the school, the firehouse, local daycare centers, and the library, and churches, making sure that anybody who needed them would have them. And we certainly will continue to do that. As you know, before the break, we gave out over about 1,200 to just students within the district and teachers within the district, with the expectation that they would test over the break and prior to coming back. I'm very happy to say that we have not seen cases in our district since we have gone maskless last Wednesday. Our intention is to slowly open it up. I think the removal of masks was a tremendous shift from New York State, but however, some of the things that we need to consider are looking at the distancing requirements that we have, and some of the other protocols that we put in place to mitigate spread. So we will continue to monitor the data. We will look. We're saying that every 2 weeks we'll look at it and we'll reevaluate. So if we see that we are not seeing spread and transmission rates seem to be very low, then we will start considering some of those ancillary spaces, bringing kids back, looking at distancing in economic music classes, things like that, to try to, again, continue the move toward normalcy within our schools. But I am pleased to say, as I said earlier, that getting into a kindergarten class, being able to read a book and see smiling faces, when I think it was just the highlight of the last 2 years. And what we just saw today was, I think, that. So, I think we're moving in the right direction. We will continue to do so. And again, if the data continues to prove that everything we're doing is working, we're very happy. So I'll move on to a couple of other things. We did have a couple of committees meet. Our Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee met. And again, our DDA liaison, they have been working within the buildings, and they reported out about the No Place for Hate designation status. I believe that each of the buildings is in there. You have to do 3 projects each year, and each of the buildings is in that status. And I think that in short order, we will have a full K-12, no place for 8 district. And I think that's a fabulous designation for us to say that we believe that this is a very important thing. There was Chris Winslow was was in to facilitate PS I Love You Day, again, which supports kind of positive affirmations and mental health wellness. And so that was really good. They also discussed the first reading of the equity policy. Their next meeting is on St. Patrick's Day, so it'll be perhaps a festive meeting, I guess. So, do you have any plans for that?
I haven't thought about that. To be quite honest, I have to put some thought into that. Something green or something.
You gonna host that with Buckley's?
Yes, I think so.
All right. What's that? The Facilities Advisory Committee also met. So delighted to say that the EPC has been approved by state ed, so work on that will begin. The exhaust fans were installed on Main Street Gym in February, over the February recess, and we are working on the water fountains to be installed as part of our capital outlay project.
So the energy performance work will begin in the summer?
Correct.
I meet with them tomorrow to develop the timeline, and we'll share that out with the board of community as soon as it's finalized.
Okay.
But we will be moving as
So
quickly
we
as
did
possible.
works for,
But July 1st,
17 years
would be a great day to start that project.
yeah,
The water fountains, those are the ones, the self-filling ones, they're not hearing. They are starting to be here.
Great, so those are for the capital outlay project.
Yeah.
So really good stuff. A couple other things. I was at a couple of conferences. I was at the Long Island Association for Supervision and Development Conference in Melville, where I had an opportunity to go to a couple of different educational sessions. Actually, a legal session by Curcio was one of them. But the morning coffee talk was Regent Roger Tillis was introducing Dr. Betty Rosa as commissioner, as well as Chancellor Leslie Young. I had a chance to speak with Roger Tillis, and he will be kind of, within a week, he's turned around and said, yes, I'd love to come out. And he's going to be reading some poetry to a couple of our classes. He will be tomorrow, actually, at 1 o'clock. So we're looking forward to a visit from a good friend of the school's, Regent Roger Tillis.
we always appreciate it. Comes.
Yes, he really is. He's a good friend of us. Interesting, I had interesting conversation with Dr. Rosa, and the commissioner has indicated that Regents exams will all run this year. So that I think is an important piece of information that it's kind of like hot off the presses, because she delivered that information just last Friday, was assured, and then when I saw her at the New York State Council School Superintendent's meeting yesterday, she also reiterated that. We are a little unclear as to the idea of if people did not want to take them, whether they are 100% mandatory or whether there's a hold harmless. So there is more information, I think, that will come out of that. But she also did talk about the APPR. There was a bill in the legislature, as many of us know, and she felt in conversations with legislators that that bill will pass, and there will be another year similar to other years where it's sort of a temporary coupling of the APPR from assessment scores, things like that, and not maybe the advantage. So, what I would say is that I think what we've witnessed, that, Carrie and I had a conversation, Scotland and I had a conversation probably in like October or so about state ed and the approach that state ed has been taking. They are 100% truly more than I've ever seen a service-oriented organization. And Dr. Rosa has reiterated that that is one of her key goals. One of her key goals is to say that as much as they are, their responsibility is oversight, and they're a regulatory agency, their main goal is for customer service. So it's really a pleasure to work with State Ed, as they are there as a support for us, more so than I've ever seen in my career. So it's really marvelous. And that was about all I had,
All right, great.
unless you had any questions.
I do not.
On with the Regents exams. We've had the students in the classrooms all year, but it's been tumultuous. Do we have any feel for how solidly they would be prepared with us?
You know what, I mean, I think that, we have every confidence in, the products we're putting out there. Difficult to say without talking, having individual conversations with the teachers. We're actually, that's a conversation that Amy and I have had about looking at those and getting some data on targets for what we believe those rates as part of, our core goals as well. So yeah, that's a conversation that we are having, that we're having in different departments.
Thank you, Marcus. All right, that brings us to. Yeah, I lost my place over there. Questions and comments regarding tonight's agenda? Okay. Thank you. The Board of Ed is asked to accept minutes of the following meetings as prepared by the district clerk. Minutes of the meeting of the Board of Education on February 16, 2022. Motion. Motion. Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
Financial reports. Be it resolved that the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of Superintendent of Schools, accepts the following financial reports. A, internal claims audit report from February 2022, budget transfers, 6 pages.
Motion. Second. Second. All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Consent-
Motion carries unanimously.
That's all.
That's okay. I wasn't sure if I heard everyone. I'm sorry.
Consent agenda items. Consent agenda items are approved by a single vote unless they are removed from being a consent item prior to the vote. Be resolved, a motion to approve the consent agenda items 9A through 13C.
Motion.
Motion.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Yes. Motion carries unanimously.
So I would just comment that there are 2 retirements in the consent agenda. And so I think we did not acknowledge 2 very special people to our district. The nurse at the elementary school, Christine Schmutzler. Nurse Schmutzler has been here for 16 years, since 2006. And you know what? She's just an exceptional person. Again, one of those people that again, new to the district, only 3 years, and 6 months into it, we get hit with a once in 100 years pandemic. She stepped up and just was extraordinary for the children of Center Merchants. I would get emails from her with, just really just very positive and suggestions that maybe we could look at this, maybe we could look at that, always in the interest of safety and supporting the students at Center Merchants and the staff in Center Merchants, and always welcomed and, just really great ideas. And then whenever I need a decision, I always got that email back from Christine saying, thanks so much for that. I really appreciate that. And like, just such a pleasure to work with and such a positive in our district. She will be sorely missed. She is somebody that, even though she's the nurse at the elementary school, stayed on top of everything from, vaping education and, just made sure that anything related to public education, being a nurse at a public school, was something that she made sure she did prepare. I had seen her even in a couple of emergencies and truly shine at times when we needed her to shine. So somebody that will be missed, will be very difficult to replace, but we certainly wish her well. The other person here is a person that is a special education teacher and chair at the high school. I'm going to say some words. I'm sure Ricardo might want to comment on both of these 2 also, because he's known them for a long time. But one of the people, when I first got hired, I remember Ed Caswell at the time speaking so affectionately about Erin Crew and saying that, man, the love she has for the students in her class is unparalleled. And I've gotten a chance to see that. I've gotten a chance to have, to hear from Ricardo and from others. And she has helped students that, for circumstances, may not have made it all the way across the line. And she's the one person. They say it takes one person in a school environment to connect to some kids. She has been that one person for a lot of kids. She has done extraordinary work. And she came to see me today with a tear in her eye, and we had just a great conversation about, when you know it's time and that kind of stuff. And she was just an exceptional person, and I thanked her from the bottom of my heart for what she has done for some of our students with, significant challenges and things like that. Kind of person she is and what she has brought in the 17 years since 2005. So just really, again, going to be difficult to replace, but certainly wish Erin well in her retirement. Ricardo, I'm sure because of who they are, you might want to say
Absolutely. I would just say that it's not going to be difficult, it's going to be almost impossible. These two individuals I've known almost the entire time that I've been in Santa Rosa. They're exceptional individuals. And these are, when I received the phone calls or the invitation to meet me from both individuals, these are the type of phone calls and invitations to conversations that you don't want, because you kind of know what's the gist of the conversation. Erin at the high school, she is exceptional. Kids love her, adults love her, colleagues love her. She has the heart that can fill a room. I don't believe that anyone in the entire district can ever say anything negative about Erin, about her performance, about her character, about her personality. So she is going to be almost an impossible person to replace. Chris Mutler, when we sort of dived into COVID, she has been instrumental in the work that we've done, not only the work that she's done at the elementary school, but also the work that we've done throughout the entire district. She is a mentor to a lot of the nurses here in district. So when she called me and she asked me for advice, and we were looking at sort of the contract and things like that, I said, wow, you're leaving too. Like, oh. So these two individuals are going to be impossible to replace. We're going to miss them sorely. The kids are going to miss them. The adults are going to miss them. The community is definitely losing two exceptional professionals that have just given us their entire heart and soul to the Santa Rosa School District. So, it's kind of difficult to say goodbye, but it's part of the process.
Lose people like that are just aberrant. But we certainly wish them well. Happy for them.
Absolutely.
Brings to general public comment. Yep. Anybody? No? Okay. So we're going to adjourn public session. Motion? Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously. We are going to motion back into executive session, but when we come out, we will not take any action at all. So you can just be sure that we're not taking any action. So motion to move into exec for the purpose of discussing personnel of public conversation that would disclose personal information. Motion?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Yes, motion carries unanimously. Thank you.